if you don't mind, can we kick it off with habit number one?
Habit number one, there's many habits, but if I were to think about some of the more important ones, is the very first thing is definitely be careful who you listen to.
Okay.
Especially as you start off in your journey, because nowadays there's so much information out there, right? Especially in the property industry in Australia, like I keep saying, everyone's an expert, right? Whether it is an actual expert or your mom, your dad, your butcher, your Uber driver will give you tips on where the next hotspot is.
Yeah.
The problem isn't necessarily them not knowing what they're talking about, but it's not conducive to what you want to achieve, in property or whatever it is in life. You have to run your own race. You have to come up with your own goals. You have to come up with your own strategy based on the information that you absorb. But you can't go after what someone else is telling you directly, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense, especially if you've already got your own plan.
Yeah.
Just to chuck in a bit of random French history here. They say one of the things that made King Louis XVI, like basically just run the French Empire into the ground, or the monarchy, was he was always ready to change his mind from the last person that he spoke to.
Right.
He didn't have like a plan and stuck to it. He listened to everyone and constantly changed things.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you can run a whole kingdom into the ground from that, then trying to actually build a portfolio and take off in the beginning, you're never going to leave the runway.
Yeah, 100%. So, when I first started out, obviously I was getting advice from everybody, but ultimately what really sort of led me to get started on the point where I had achieved my initial passive income goal.
Yeah.
Is really just buying the type of properties that no one else thought they were going to be any good, right? And everyone around me was telling me I was doing the wrong thing. I was, making massive mistakes. I was wasting my money. I was gonna lose money. And I just kept going because the strategy worked for me. It was conducive to what I wanted to do. The numbers actually made perfect sense because I had really good cash flow. And when you're starting out, typically have no money, right? So, you can't own lots of properties if every property is even costing you $50 or $100 a week.
Okay, so for anyone listening right now thinking, okay, I can do this. I can see where he's coming from. What's is there like a sentence you used to tell yourself? Is there like, how did you handle it when someone's going, Simon, what are you doing? Nah, that's the wrong thing. Did you have to pull yourself up? Like, what was the actual habit?
Look, the habit is, it's a bit of a mental game.
Yep.
Because some of this stuff is going to come from people you care about.
Okay.
Obviously like family and friends and those kinds of people. So I think the habit would be to really think, does this make sense from a common sense perspective? And also, without sounding harsh, do they know what they're talking about? So I always use this example. Like if you were to wanting to go out to learn how to bake a cake, you wouldn't necessarily just read about it in a book. If you wanted to get real life experience, you might talk to the baker that's been doing it for 30 years. So if someone that doesn't know how to bake cakes tries to give you tips on how to bake a cake, you might not necessarily want to listen to them, right?
Makes perfect sense.
You might take what they say in the back of your mind, but you're not going to actually go, okay, this guy's never baked any cakes before. Why is he trying to teach me how to bake a cake? That type of thing.
I get you. So stay focused on find a person or a few handful of people that are where you want to be. Yeah. That's your focus.
Yeah.
And then unless someone else fits that mold, it's like, cool, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Respectfully.
Respectful. I mean, there's so many different people have different goals in property and anything in life, and for example, mine was passive income. So I would read books and listen to how other people have achieved passive income.
Yep.
But then when everyone else started to tell me about different things on what they did to find success in their own way, I kind of thought, okay, cool. That's not what I want to achieve.
Yep.
I'll listen to it, but I probably won't take that into account.
Okay. Talk to me about the next habit. Learn to be assertive. What do you mean by that?
Learning to be assertive means basically, you have to learn how to not necessarily take no for an answer without being rude or anything like that or overly aggressive. The challenges in building up anything, whether it's a property portfolio or anything like that, is you're going to be dealing with all sorts of people. People at the top, people at the, at all different sort of walks of life, right?
Yep.
And everyone's always trying to get something from you.
Yeah.
Potentially. So, just kind of learning how to be more
like spotting the agenda kind of thing.
Yeah. Spotting the agenda. If someone's trying to pull you into a certain direction, just stand your ground really, and just get kind of, like I keep saying, just run your own race.
Okay. We're looking at these kind of chronologically so far then. So by having your your goals and everything set first, that's going to help you actually be careful who you listen to. Because if you're listening to people that are where you want to be, it makes sense. If they're not, well, then they're not. But then having that same kind of focus also makes you more confident to be assertive when someone else is like, oh, no, that's not possible, or you can't do this or whatever, to be able to go, yeah, okay, cool. That's what you think. But no, I'm just going to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, basically. So, I mean, I think one of the challenges, especially when you're starting out, is you're quite green, and you probably recognize that. You know, as bad as it sounds, there's a lot of people out there that are just trying to get something out for them. You know, whether it's business or whatever it is, and you know, they see people that are quite new as like maybe a target.
Yeah, fresh meat.
Yeah, fresh meat, that type of thing. Unless you're a butcher, that's not a great thing to be. But yeah, I think it's just stand your ground. You know, have your goal set out. Focus on your own thing and just learn to be assertive.
The last one is personally my favorite on your list. Okay. And I know you and I talked about this before, and you said there's probably a list of about 20 things we could go into in a whole huge episode. Yeah. But the last one, delayed gratification.
Delayed gratification is extremely important for me because when you start out buying properties, you have to save money, you know, as an example. And, you know, typically people are earning salaries that aren't massive. Especially when you're young, it's really important. Like it's really easy to get drawn into things like flashy cars and holidays and all that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily just being a hermit and not doing anything, but thinking about, you know, can I be doing something else with this money to help me achieve my goals? So my example is I'm really into cars, right? Yeah. As you know, so, you know, I deliberately, as I was building my portfolio, I deliberately bought not a great car, you know, for myself to drive around in.
Yeah.
And the purpose of that is definitely because I couldn't afford the type of cars that I wanted. But in many ways, having that car was a motivation for me to keep building my wealth and focus my wealth on to get myself to a point where I could afford obviously nicer car to drive in. Okay.
So you were at a point, like, if I've understood you right, where you could have actually afforded the nicer car, but you kept the more like entry level, whatever kind of car it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you did that to purposely push yourself forward to as like a sit on the uncomfortable chair kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you know, you drive around in this car and you see all these other nice cars on the road, and you go, one day I want to get that. I'm going to get that. But it's not necessarily like because you can't afford it at that point in time, but you want to be able to do it properly. You know, you don't want to obviously take up a massive load and stuff to buy a silly car to drive in. It's kind of like, you know, if you know you're going to a buffet.
Yeah.
You kind of starve yourself throughout the day to make the most of it. Yeah. If you have a nice 3-course meal, you know, for lunch and your buffet's at dinner, you go there and you're like, oh, you know, it's food, I guess, you know, you're going to eat it. But if you didn't eat, you know, lunch deliberately for the buffet, you go there and it's like, wow, all this amazing food. You know, you can actually probably enjoy it and you probably get excited about it as well. And so it's more gratifying actually.
So you're talking about almost, for lack of a better term, financial starvation.
Yes.
So you can then basically just go, I can do whatever I want now. Like the buffet is mine.
I think that's a very important thing to do. Like, look, I mean, you know, you get to a point where you can actually, you know, buy nice things and do nice things. And it's not necessarily just material either. But just learning to hold yourself back and go, okay, if I don't do something today that is going to cost me a lot of money and all this kind of stuff, and I just focus on building wealth, further down, I'll be able to buy or do something even better. So it's kind of just like constantly having little goals and little dreams and thinking, okay, it's worth it. It's worth the wait.
Upgrading from the breakfast buffet to the lobster buffet.
Yeah. Basically, breakfast to dinner.
All right, mate. Well, I think we're running out of time on this one, but if you've got final words of wisdom or some kind of a 30-second wrap up, is there anything that you'd want to leave people thinking when they're actually trying to form their own habits to success?
It all comes down to goals, right? You really need to have your own goals, set them out. Don't just have like, oh, I dream of wanting to retire or quit my day job. Find out what it takes. It's going to take $100,000. You know, to replace your income. Okay, we'll work backwards from there. What do you have to do today? You know, find out how long you want that to happen. So if it's 5, 10, 20 years, you know, okay, so if I have 10 years to get to 100K, how am I going to achieve that? And work out literally what you need to do as you go backwards, what you need to do in 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 1 year today. And then formulate a strategy around that. And that's how you can block out a lot of the white noise around you. That's how you learn to be assertive. And that's how you also think, okay, it's going to be worth it so that I can
delay the gratification.
Delay the gratification, yeah.
Love it. Simon Loo from House Finder. I think that's a perfect wrap up, mate. I'm sure we'll see you on the show again soon.
No worries. Thanks for having me.